Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Creative Lounge. This is a fantastic series that I described last week as being a kind of afterthought way back in my brain that David McKay took and birthed. And it's just the simple idea to take some time and sit down with fantastic photographers and artists of all kinds of style and skill and chat with them and share their stories and their ideas about everything. And I'm really excited about tonight's guest. But before we get to that, I just want to remind you that we've done 3 of these episodes. The 4th one will be June 18th. And I'm also really excited by that one because we've got Terrell Lloyd. He is the San Francisco 49ers photographer. And I think, a really timely discussion with him about things that he's seen and his experiences in the business. And 2, just interviewing a professional sports photographer I'm really excited about. So I'm really looking forward. He shot some iconic images. He has been a San Francisco native all his life and has a huge passion for not only sports, but the 49ers and, of course, photography. So putting all that together, I'm really excited by that. That will be episode 4, June 8th. At 6 p.m. Please join us. The show link will be up very soon. You can always find this at photorec.tv/lounge. But with all of that said, I want to come back to these 3 other smiley faces and say, David and Allie, hello. How are you all doing? And wait, I'm sorry. Hold on. I'm not good at my job. I need to remind people that this show is brought to you by the Photo Enthusiast Network, photorec.tv, and of course, McKay Photography Academy. All of these things combined to create this show. And Photo Enthusiast members, many of you are in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching this and you're not a member, we're running a fantastic discount right now because we believe everybody should have a community that they feel that they are a part of. And we are super proud of the community that we run and what we offer as far as photography education. You can find out lots more about it by going to photorec.tv/join. Now, please, David McKay, introduce this fine guest, and let's get on with the show so I don't make any more silly things. Let's get away from me.
All right. Well, first of all, we are already being asked what we are drinking. We are in the lounge. Of course, our lounge is virtual right now. I will say that I have once again got a nice couple shots of bourbon, a little pineapple in there, maple syrup, and some Luxardo cherries. That's my drink. Allie, where's your wine? You got wine?
I have
no wine before.
Yes, I do.
Oh, Toby.
I have a localish Pacific Northwest IPA that I discovered in the back of the fridge. That's what I'm drinking.
All right. And Mark, you are kind of in the shadow a little bit, but that's okay because it's not, we're going to be looking at, there you go. And Mark is a craft beer aficionado. Mark is a friend. I think we met through the California Airshow, Capital Airshow. Maybe, I don't know. Somehow I photographed the Patriots. You photographed the Patriots jet team. Somewhere in there we met for beer and you are drinking what are you drinking?
Currently, right now, I'm actually drinking a Kolsch from my plug for Bravery, which is down in Palmdale or Lancaster, California.
All right, and so we are going to be talking with Mark. Mark is an incredible aviation photographer. I'm a big fan of his aviation work. I do want to say that before we got online, Mark was talking about the $100 hamburgers, and that's where you fly down to a hamburger place, you pay $100 for gas, pay $10 for a burger, and you fly home. I've done that in my flying days, but now it's like a $300 hamburger because gas is so expensive.
And what aircraft you're flying in, yes.
Right, yeah. Actually, gas has gone down. But that beer, you said, was like a $500 beer. You guys flew down to pick up that beer last week.
We took a small plane, but we brought back a few cases of beer, and some of it heavy-hitting beer, which is like $20 a bottle for a 22-ounce, because they're all imperial stouts, barrel-aged in rum, bourbon, tequila, vanilla bourbon. Oh gosh, we had all kinds of brandy. One of our favorites. So we'll get into that. That's a whole show.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure glad you invited me along on that trip. All right, a little bit about Mark. I want to talk a little bit about Mark, and maybe we can pull up some of those images as we go.
Yeah.
So at the age of 14, just a young boy, Mark was given his first camera and began experimenting with his photography. He attended California State University in Chico, where he earned his bachelor's degree in business with an emphasis in marketing. Mark has pursued careers in graphic design and marketing, as well as information technology, including desktop support to a network administrator and a systems analyst. However, through the years, he has sustained his passion for photography. He now works as a full-time photographer and the proprietor of E Loper Photography, marketing and design studio with over 25 years of experience. He lives here in the Folsom, California area with his wife Jennifer and his 2 children. A little bit about Mark's aviation photography is he has been featured. There's so many publications listed here: Flying Magazine, Air and Space Magazine, Airshow Stuff Magazine, STOL, Stoll, I think that's the tool company, Aircraft Magazine, Warbird Digest. The list goes on. Travel and Leisure, Sierra Food and Wine, and many, many more. And he is a continued featured contributor to World Airshow News. And with that, as you can see some of these beautiful images crossing the screen here, we would like to intro our guest, Mark E. Loper. Thank you for joining us, Mark. We are so glad that you are here and joining us this evening. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me. This is quite a treat. Plus, I get to have a beer while I'm being talked to.
Yeah, we're going to see if our words slur as we go. And I don't know. You never drink when you're flying, not at least if you're at the controls. But I can't imagine when you're photographing either. With some of the stuff that I've seen you hanging out of helicopters and stuff, probably not a good idea. So
definitely not. Absolutely. So
we kind of have a little bit of an outline we're going to go off of tonight, and then we want to get into the meat and potatoes because there's some pretty cool stuff that you do. And I know that people out there, not necessarily a professional aviation photographer, but they go to air shows. They love aviation. That's me. I love aviation. I love air shows. And even though that's not what I do full time, just some of the techniques you use, the gear you use, we definitely want to get into that. But let's just talk a little bit about your background. You got a camera when you were 14. You've kept this passion up through all of your kind of life, and you made this switch into doing full-time photography. When was that, and how did that come about?
Well, let's see. I think I started with a disc camera. You guys remember that?
That was my first camera.
Little discs that had all the images, the negatives.
Little tiny
yeah, exactly. And I started taking pictures around the yard, taking pictures of my toys, that kind of stuff, and get them developed now and then. But fortunately, I think the disc camera only had like 15 photos on it or something of the sort. So it wasn't too expensive for my mom to go down and have it developed for me. But from there, I didn't do a whole lot through high school, but when I got to college, I started getting more into the photography end of it. I think I bought a Minolta. Minolta 7000 was probably my first DSLR, or actually
first autofocus. First autofocus cameras or the Maxim series. Yeah,
the Maxim series. It was a great camera, and so I used that through college, I guess. Then I got a job actually with a cellular dealer. And they had me do their design and marketing for all their advertisements. And then I actually had them give me an Apple Quick Take so that I could instantly take a photo of a new phone that just came out. And then I can get it in the ad and printed that night. So as soon as I got a new phone, I would take a picture with the Quick Take. It was back 740 by 480 was the pixels. And I can get it in the newspaper because it was only 72 line screen and it didn't need to be exceptionally quality. And that was kind of the starting of my digital process. And that was about 94, 95, maybe middle 90s.
Early digital, man.
Yeah. And so, but I still had my Minolta that I was doing for my own personal stuff for the longest time until I think about the year 2000, I got a digital camera from the company that I worked for at the time. They sent me overseas to check out. This was when I was in IT. Sent me overseas to some of our other offices. I would take it with me, take some pictures of some stuff that their server rooms, their computers, send them back to the HQ digitally. And that was kind of the beginning of using digital photography. Then I bought a Sony. I got a little Sony. It was a 2.1 pixel Sony.
Nice upgrade.
Yeah, 2.1 from the, I don't know, half pixel from 640. I don't know what that really is, but from the Sony, I just slowly progressed to see if the quality was there, because I still wanted the film, because 2.1 pixels wasn't good enough for making big images. So if you wanted to print something large, I still did the film. I would take the film camera and the digital camera until I started getting into another couple of cameras. I forget which in between. I ended up finally with a 50D from Canon. And
oh, you did? Okay, that's where. Okay.
So I took the 50D trips with me everywhere. Used that for several years. Then I upgraded to a 5D Mark II, which then I went full frame. I made a huge difference in some of the quality. And then after I got done with the 5.2 or the 5D Mark II, I currently use a 5D Mark IV because it's it's a great little camera.
So that's been your progression with gear a bit, and we'll get a little bit more into gear too.
Oh.
What we're already getting a ton of questions, and I just want everybody to know we will get to those questions. Roy is taking notes on all those questions, and we'll be sending those off to us so that we can make sure we get to those. Most of the time we do those near the end, but I will wanted to know, so what drew you into aviation photography? Did you always love aviation? Like I've always ever since I can remember as a little guy, I've loved planes, and I have a collection of model planes and all that. And I've always loved the thought of being an aviation photographer. That's not really where I've gone, but where did that just kind of happen, or how did that, what drew you in?
Actually, I'll try to make another long story short. When I was about 6, my mother at the time, she was single at the time. When my mom was sick, in fact, my parents are watching, so I got to be good.
Ah, hi, parents.
But when I think it was 5 or 6 or something, my mom started taking flying lessons. And when she would go do her touch and goes in Little Grumman, I would have to, me and my sister would go flying with her and do the touch and goes and stuff after she got her license, of course. Wow. Can't fly with us when she doesn't have her license. And she got in an aviation community of people that were there when she was getting her license done. And at that time, she just started hanging out with the aviation people, and they would go to air shows. And I remember as a little boy getting in the airplane, and we would fly to an air show, watch the air show, and then fly home. She ended up meeting my stepfather in a trip that she was doing cross country when she was up in San Jose at a pilot lounge. And I think that was around when I was 7. And so my mom being a pilot, and when I was 9, they got married. So my stepfather being a pilot, he ended up being a corporate pilot. We moved to England for 2.5 years when I was young. Okay. And I have a lot of cockpit time in a 727 that you flew for that part of the career. And then we moved back to Cameron Park, which is in Northern California. And he went on to the airlines shortly after that. So I've always been around aviation as a little boy. And then I started going to some of the local air shows. There's a local air show near me at Mather Field in Sacramento. And I started shooting some of those shows just for fun. And then one year I decided to contact the media person for the air show and said, hey, I'm an aviation enthusiast. I'd like to come out and take some photos, and I would gladly share them with you guys if you let me come in on a media day, which is kind of an access day for the media, obviously, to get different photos that the normal crowd wouldn't have on a particular day. So how I actually got into aviation photography as a profession is that I did share those photos with the executive director of the air show for California Capitol Air Show. And I think within 2 hours of showing them, she called me and said, can I use these for my board meeting this week?
Wow. Okay. Cool.
Nice compliment right off the bat there.
I gave her my best work as much as I could. You're seeing some of the results of those photos and the people that she's connected me with. So honestly, I have to credit the executive director of that air show for kind of giving me the start and all my contacts with all these different pilots. And it's been a downhill road ever since.
Downhill road.
But I mean,
it rolls easy downhill. It's not the hard uphill climb.
Yeah,
to get into the business.
Yeah, but I mean, it was your you taking the initiative to reach out and say, hey, I'd like to shoot and share pictures with you all, and
correct.
That got the ball rolling. Very cool.
Ball rolling,
Very cool. Yeah. Nice.
You took that initiative, and it's pretty awesome because you take an initiative like that, you offer something, and next thing you know, that's you're in.
It opened the door.
It opened the door. You were responsible to knock.
Yeah,
and
you got to knock, and anybody that has an interest in doing what I'm doing, I can tell you all kinds of stuff on the do's and don'ts of how to get into the industry.
Well, we'll talk about some of that because there are people that definitely are online right now that I'm seeing that I know love aviation photography and do aviation photography, and I'm sure they're going to have some other questions.
I am by far not the only one because every time I go to an air show, there's 100 guys out there with bigger lenses than I got.
Well, as you've progressed, so that has opened the world to you in the sense. Now you're doing air to air. You work with the Patriots jet team a lot. I know they're the only jet team in the U.S. that is a privately owned jet team. Is that correct?
It's a civilian-owned jet team. They also have their own photographer that goes along with them, Cliff George, if you're watching.
Cliff, hey Cliff, if you're out there.
They have a photographer that when they go on tour, they invite to come along and do the shoots. And I shoot with Cliff. I shoot with a lot of different aviation photographers. So the beauty of aviation photography, if it's done right, is all about relationships and making sure that you have good relationships with not only the people that are putting on the air shows, as well as the pilots, but also the other photographers that are out there that you've got to rub shoulders with when you're out there. Keeping good relationships with everyone.
In the world of photography, for the most part, people are really, it's a great community as a whole. There are some not so great people once in a while in some places. And that's one of the things we love about Penn as a community is such a rewarding and fun community. But one of the things I noticed, again, I haven't shot a lot of aviation, but I was out at the California Air Show a couple times, and
I invited you out to do the photo tour, I think.
Yeah, and I want to share with people about that because I think that's become something that's starting to happen around the nation, if I'm not mistaken, with other air shows that they might be able. And the California Air Show, the Capitol Air Show, has been kind of the ones that started that, created it, and that was an amazing experience because you were out the day before or the night before as well, photographing. You get to get right up on the line on the runways where these jets are taking off and the performers are. You're like 100 yards away sometimes, which may seem 100 yards. Sometimes you're closer than that. Well, you're closer than that when you have the private times. And you're like right there, man. And it is amazing. And nobody gets that kind of access. You're not with 10,000 people, you're with like 100 people. But what I noticed was everybody helped everybody. Everybody was like, there was no attitudes. Everybody's like, oh, did you try this, do this, you know? And it was a real sense of camaraderie of not only love of photography, but love of aviation. And even the pilots themselves make time to talk with the photographers, you know? I mean, you can talk to one of the Thunderbird pilots or the Blue Angel pilots, you know, they're super nice. So let's talk a little bit about how our folks, to maybe talk about the California Capital Air Show, that program, and those that are listening in the Sacramento or the California area, that might be something they want to do. I don't know what's going to happen this year with the show, but something they should do, but also how that's happening at other places. And then they can use that to open the doors by talking to the directors and getting involved and meeting other pilots and follow this dream.
Great topic. Aviation is just like any actually other sport photography. The key to aviation photography is access. Yeah, access is king. Access is everything. If you can't get close to what you are shooting, you're going to have a tough time getting spectacular images. Of course, when they're in the air, biggest lens wins, I guess. but when they're on the ground, that's where the bread and butter is to meet those needs for getting those tight shots of aircraft that nobody else is getting. And that's the key too, is exclusivity. Trying to have access that nobody else has. And that's one of the things that I try to get most of the time is an access point to where I can get those shots and nobody or maybe one or two other people can.
Let me interrupt you for just a second on that. Because maybe Toby wants to pull up some shots. Would this be a good spot maybe to pull up some of those night shots? I know we can talk about the night photography, but some of the access
with if you wanted to do the photos of some of me and the access that I had. Those.
Oh yeah, okay.
There's a lot.
Just like to give people.
Yeah, so that's me on the ground, and of course I have orange vested. Oh, and of course I do the aerial photography over air shows. So I have the ability to get into helicopters and airplanes and that kind of stuff. So that is obviously a exclusive access point. Getting in these aircraft, doing air-to-airs with the other aircraft, and there's a shot of it right there. Oh, thanks, Tommy.
Yeah, I see Tommy's best aviation photographer this side of the Mississippi. Tommy probably lives on the other side of the Mississippi, if I'm not.
Yeah, exactly. No, actually, plug to Tommy. He was my beer run pilot. So he's a great guy and he's local. But some of the early photos that you're seeing in this slideshow are some of the aircraft that I've actually flown in to take pictures. And some of them are air to air, some of them are air to ground. So different air show directors will ask me to get some aerial shots of the air show from above so that they can see crowd count and how things look from above and how logistically things. That's my favorite shooting platform is the Bonanza. But yeah, really? I do all kinds of different things. But you'll start seeing being able to get in front of the crowd and getting images. And as of course you realize too, Dave, when we stuck you on the other side of the runway because it's better lighting, or you're closer to the runway where aircraft are landing and taking off.
But yeah, leave that shot right there. Let's talk about that.
That's alpha. That is, and you see, having access to the aircraft.
There you go.
There you go. This is what you're talking about, the access right here. Now, not everybody's going to be able to get in an aircraft, you know, when they're first going and learning and meeting people. But if you can get to the point where you can get access like this and then get your work in front of people and in front of these directors and they get to know the pilots. Roy, you had said that sometimes it costs hundreds of dollars for this. And yeah, I will say that the air shows do help support what they're doing by charging the photographers a fee to be part of this. But when you consider what you pay just to go anyway, and then you look at what kind of access. And this is the kind of access I just wanted to, when I saw that, because that is the kind of access I had right there. I mean, it was like, you're kidding me.
Yep. When you pay for the photo tour, you will technically get better access than anybody else, including the media. The media doesn't even get that access. So you get better lighting. Of course, everything is all about light, proper light. See there again, I'm out in the front getting photos that nobody else can get out there. You can't get out there because you have to be 50 feet away from turning props. So
and notice there's no crowds, right? Because obviously not along the runways, but even the access that you get before opening and after opening. And the only reason I'm bringing all this up is because I know that this, again, has become kind of a situation that other air shows have followed suit with what the Capital Air Show has done because it's been so successful. And regulars get put in jail is what Christian said if they get that close to the bird. And the thing is, these shows have 20,000 people show up, and you get to go out in the evenings and the mornings. That's like one day or whatever, and you get to go out before the crowds, after the crowds, and during the show you are right there. So that's why I wanted to bring that up, because it's very, very important for people to know they can get this kind of access at some of these shows.
Correct, but that's where I started with telling you, is that it's all about the relationships you build, and you have to have a professional relationship with the air show directors or whoever is in charge of allowing you to do this first. You go out and make sure you get that permission first. You don't go out and ask for forgiveness afterwards. I have a great rapport with the FAA. I have to be in cahoots with the FAA, which gives people access in an aerobatic box, which we can talk about later. I have to have permission from an air show director, and I also have to have permission from the air boss, which is the air traffic controller of an air show. And I have to have all that together to make sure everybody says, okay, Mark, you can go out in front of the line or the crowd line with an orange vest and a radio and get those shots. And you have to make sure that your relationship with these people is solid and professional, and that's the only way you're going to get out there. If you try to get out there without getting permission, you're going to get in trouble.
Or lose a limb.
Well, hopefully you're not walking into spinning proppy things or sucky engine things. Those are the things you want to avoid.
All right. Well, I still have lots of questions, but I know Allie and Toby, you've got a lot of questions. I at some point want to talk about the nighttime shooting that you've got with the still photography or the still aircraft, because again, that's access. I want to talk about, you just mentioned the aerobatic box. I want to make sure we hit that. And there's a lot of great questions that have come through, but Allie or Toby, go ahead. Cause I'll just keep talking, as you know.
Go ahead, Allie.
Okay. So Mark, I kind of nailed it when I talked about my question I wanted to ask, because pretty much everyone on the chat has come up with,
oh really?
How do you get these shots?
Yeah.
And I want to walk through that in a way. Toby, if you could find that Golden Gate Bridge shot.
Oh.
Yeah. So Mark,
air to air shots.
So that's got to be air to air, because you're looking from the ocean in to San Francisco and the Golden Gate Bridge in the back. So as you're flying, and I know that every great photographer.
Oh yeah.
That's Tommy Ishii in that lead airplane, by the way, that spoke up earlier. That's Tommy Ishii in that lead.
Oh, nice.
Oh, really? Okay,
That's
awesome. He's the best pilot this side of Mississippi.
Yeah, I'll definitely go with that.
Yeah,
especially when he decides he's going to ask David to go for that next beer run. Just saying. Okay. See how I knocked everybody? See how I knocked?
No, you don't. You steal my back seat of that airplane. He actually, in this photo though, he's in the one on the left, but he now sold that one and he bought the one that's in the lower right. So that's what we flew him. We were both in the one in the lower right.
Yeah. Okay. So Mark, I from my experience, I know that every great photographer is good at anticipating, and they also are good at scanning, just like pilots are. You have to use your eyes, scan, think ahead for your shots. So can you walk us through what it was like to anticipate the angle of having the bridge in the background, the Golden Gate Bridge, iconic scene? Walk us through, like, your camera settings are ready and now you're just going to anticipate. I'm assuming you're on continuous shutter or burst mode.
Actually,
talk.
Not a problem. Actually, as any photographer knows, composition is king to make sure that these photos look as good as they do. Having the right gear ahead of time, having the right lens ahead of time, and knowing the right settings ahead of time. Notice that, in fact, if you pull up one of those photos with the propeller planes, even that last one, or anything else that you just shown earlier on, notice that, and here's the thing that I want to emphasize for aviation photographers, anybody that isn't one or wants to be one, the key, and this is what separates the boys from the men, is notice that there's no frozen props. See the props? There's movement. And you have to make sure, in fact, that is a full disc prop right there. That is one of those key images for these. And it depends on the lighting to get those full props. See, you can barely see that there's a prop in those two aircraft there. But on all these, you don't see frozen props. The last thing you want to do as an aviation photographer is have a prop that looks like it's not spinning. So that's the difference between sports photography, where you want everything still. If you talk to Mike on your first episode and he's out there on the football field, you want to see these balls as still as possible. In the football field, he was doing tennis. There are some great shots, and you want the highest shutter speed with the widest aperture you can get to get these things as still as possible. And that's the key to aviation photography, is that you have to do a balance. You gotta.
I think we lost you there, Mark. Oh, well,
yeah.
Is his camera?
His camera is frozen. He's frozen.
He's frozen. Okay, he's talking about shutter speed and freezing the action, and he got frozen. So
tell your kids to get off the internet.
I don't know if he can hear this. Let me tell him. I'm gonna text him real quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point, Toby. Though, don't you think about finding the shutter speed between stopping the plane movement and letting the prop have some movement?
That's right. And I think that's just what he was about to say, is that balance of that shutter speed is just right. And it makes sense, because you think about a bunch of airplanes with frozen props in the sky, they're just going to look like toys, just kind of suspended there. Where here you really get a sense of the action and of that motion, and the flying is just very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, if he had stopped the prop, it may look like it was an airplane in a museum that was photoshopped into the sky.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
That's fair. Exactly. We'll definitely get him back here in a minute. I'm sure he'll reappear, and we'll get him into the show. But just a fantastic portfolio of work, and just some really cool stuff. I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about these refueling pictures. Where was he? How did that work out? And of course, let's hear a little bit more about, because not only are you're picking that shutter speed that's going to be good for the props, but you got to make sure if a lot of this air to air, like we're looking at right now, you still got to make sure that you are really kind of nailing it just right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got and Toby, you did too. He says he's trying to relog in. So I know he's trying to get back on. So that's the lovely thing about these virtual chat rooms. He really wanted to go get another beer is what I think is probably happening.
Let's hope he's not flying to a new beer.
No. And so yeah, I told him to use the same back link. I think that's correct, right, Toby? So okay, so yeah, so and Jason Troy said those are some killer images. They really are. Mm-hmm. And again, the access, so Ali, you were talking about the Golden Gate shot, and we'll just let this play here, but you were talking about that kind of as they come into the scene, preparing for it, and those settings. And that's what, I want to find out, because I know where he was going with this is those settings. You got to be thinking about your composition. There you go. Yep. And he's obviously up above them, and I'm assuming in radio contact with them. But I'll tell you, capturing that and having, like I said, the fast shutter speed, but how fast is that? Because that's where if you go too fast, he says it's totally stop motion. So it's probably, we're going to guess here, Christian wrote 125th of a second, 160th of a second. And I bet that's about right, which means that it's got to be typically panning with a lot of, but if you pan, then how do you get the Golden Gate Bridge without it being blurred in the background, So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, that's right. And now remember, he's moving at a similar speed that they're moving. So that in turn becomes panning, that exercise that we do on the street corner, moving with the cars. However, the Golden Gate, as David said, is sharp as well. So let's pick his brain about that one. And I'm sure some of this is trial and error, and it happens. Sometimes you have a really great, happy accident that happens, and then you do that the next time and the next time. But you don't want to totally blow these shots, because this is a really, kind of once in a lifetime for some people.
Sure. Yeah, I imagine. Like Dave, you said, he's in radio contact with these guys, but I'm pretty sure he can't be like, oh, let's do one more lap around.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a one-time deal. Yeah.
And I did just get Toby, I don't know if you saw it, he had to reboot his router, so we're sorry everybody, he lost complete internet. That is better than engine failure though, so
yes.
So he is getting there, and I do want to say that we are getting some questions, and these are some of the questions. I just want everybody to know that we are going to be getting to these questions. Christian has asked about ND filters for slowing the shutter speed down when it's really bright outside and you want to slow the shutter speed down, and the slowest you can get on a bright sunny day might be 800th of a second, or 1,000th of a second. So using an ND filter to slow it down, I never thought about that in aviation. I think about it for waterfall. So that's a question. Christian also says, how do I get a gig, please? We've talked about that. Hey, we have Leslie Gleam. Leslie, I'm sorry, I don't know if it's Gleim or Gleam. We've met via online. Leslie is a Hasselblad shooter, and she does a lot of amazing aerial photography. She's online with us tonight, and she does a lot of, landscape photography from the air and in Hawaii. She's asking about photographing from an airplane versus a helicopter. I think that's because Mark mentioned one of his favorite platforms was actually from an airplane, and surprisingly enough, it was actually from a low-wing airplane, which I was surprised by.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm gonna pull that back up and show everybody. I was too. Let's make sure we ask about that. That was in his gallery here, and I believe it was. I'll get there just a second.
Sure, and
plane.
By the way, Mark's call sign is shooter amongst those pilots. That is his call sign, Tommy just said. So
nice.
All right. Tommy, and remember, Tommy,
thanks for answering that. And that makes sense. I love it.
Yeah. And Tommy, remember why he's not online right now and rebooting. I'm next for the beer run. I'm just saying.
That's right. Keep him coming, Tommy.
Yeah. So, but you know, Chris Bartel, we can actually answer this question for her right now because she asked. It looks like you take a lot of photos up in the air. How do you get good shots through the windows of airplanes? Well, there's your answer. They take off the doors and they take off the windows. And I want to ask him if he's actually strapped in. I would or wearing a parachute. I'm assuming if he's smart. So that's how that happens, because you got to cut that glare when you were up, and you've got this expensive glass that you're shooting with. You don't want to be shooting through a plexiglass of an airplane windshield with bugs all over it. So
yeah.
And Jamie is asking, how did he get into this field? We talked about that. If you happen to miss that, Jamie, we did talk about the start. Karen's asking about speed of the airplane versus the plane you're photographing. So a lot of great questions that are coming, and we're hoping that we can get him back online again. He is restarting his router. He should be back on here
we are.
Any minute. And Tommy, thanks a lot for inviting me next time on the beer run and kicking off. Hey, Mark, it's great to have you back with us. We are so glad you're here.
Can you disconnect that Tommy character over here?
David kept everybody entertained by making airplane noises, so I'm really glad you're back.
Hey, Shooter, we do know that you are named Shooter.
Yes. Yeah, that is my call sign. Gee, I wonder why.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
I'm not going to call you that in a bar. Okay.
Good idea at a bar. Yeah.
All right. So you know what? Why don't you talk about Toby? Ali, I don't know. He was going with that. We kind of approached the subject with the props, but there was that shot with the Golden Gate. Let's just go back to that shot for a second, because you're talking about the fact that you have to slow down the shutter speed.
Yep.
If I'm not, but it has to be fast enough to stop the action. Slow enough to make sure the prop has movement.
Yep.
Which then, in my assumption, you are panning with these planes as you're shooting, so that the planes. But what the heck? Because the background of the Golden Gate. Okay, see, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking you got to pan, or otherwise the plane's going to be blurry. So how is that? How is that happening, man?
Here's the trick of that. And everybody that has never done any air-to-air photography thinks that, oh my gosh, do I need a stabilizer? Do I need different settings to make this happen? Well, my airplane that I'm shooting from and those airplanes that I'm shooting at are moving at the same speed. So it's like I am shooting a still car, or at least maybe a car that's going a couple miles an hour down the road. And that's very slow in that transition. You also have a slow shutter speed, which also opens up your depth of field. So the depth of field gives you everything in focus that you want, because you have slowed the shutter speed down. You're shooting at 100 ISO, of course. You want to, but these shots, because they're two-bladed props, here's the thing too. These are two-bladed props, and their RPMs are not as high as, say, a different aerobatic airplane. These are aerobatics planes, but there are other aerobatic planes that have 3 or 4 bladed props, mainly 3, and their RPMs, you can sync up your shutter speed to the RPM of the aircraft that you're shooting. These are two-bladed props, which gives you a little more difficulty to slow it down. If you wanted to get these things in full circle, I think you got to bring it down to 1/80, 1/60. I don't want to shoot that slow. There's another one. If you back up probably 6 or 7 photos, maybe towards the front. I'm trying to see it up in here somewhere, but a lot of these CJs here that you're seeing, these are all two-bladed props. I'm not sure. Well, that's a jet. These are all jets. Two-bladed props are hard to get full arcs. When you have a 3-bladed aerobatic prop, then you can go 1/25, so 1/125, to get that full arc. And I think it's really at the very beginning of the whole portfolio here. But as you can see, as he's thumbing through all these different ones. These are all a bunch of RVs. These are the West Coast Ravens. West Coast Ravens is a formation team here in the West Coast, and there's like 40 or 50 of these guys that all fly together formation. For instance, right there, actually, you can stop right there. It's kind of hard to see in this photo, but that prop, that's an extra 300, and that is a full prop circle, but you don't see it because we're shooting in midday, and obviously these are not the best time to get these exceptional shots, but sometimes when you have a photo shoot that is scheduled in between an air show, you got to go when they say they have time to go. So these aren't the optimal shots. But if you back up to the very beginning of that list up top, I think you can see it. You'll be able to, that red one. Oh, you were just hit that one, that first one, the very first one on the top left. So that is an aerobatic plane that literally, this is Patty Wagstaff, and she literally her wingtip inside the airplane I was flying in. She's that close.
Wow.
I had to go a wide angle to get that, but I still had to shut her down to 1/125. So this is 1/125th of the speed. And that gives you the full arc. Plus, it gives you that light from the sun that gives you like that lightning bolt in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is what aviation photographers need to strive for when they're shooting aircraft from another airplane. So this is very difficult to get on the ground, because if you are not moving at the same speed as these airplanes, you want to match the speed when you're doing air-to-air. So we're doing probably 140 knots, maybe 150 knots in the air. We're flying right next to each other, not moving forward or back or up or down between each other. I will give hand signals to my pilot that I'm shooting to say, hey, I want you up 5 feet or down, that kind of thing. But
I'd be saying up another 20, please. A little close.
So if you're on the ground and you're shooting an airplane taking off, you have to pan with the airplane, plus use the slow shutter speed, and your keeper rate in that is extremely low. So you got to make a balance. Do you want a crisp, clean shot and some movement in the blades, or do you want a blurry shot with a full arc like this? Unfortunately, when you're in the air, you're flying at the same speed. These shots are so much easier to get full arc than any other aircraft.
That makes sense. Okay.
So,
but on the ground, that's opposite. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Oh, on the ground, that's kind of opposite. And this is a good example why this is up, because you're slowing that shutter down, as you mentioned, so you get the arc and the prop, but you're moving at the speed of the aircraft, so the aircraft is stopped in the action. Mm-hmm. But that's also, as opposed to a lot of sports photography, you mentioned this, I just want to drive this point home, because look at the depth here. If you were shooting at 2.8, that back plane is out of focus, or the Golden Gate is out of focus. So your f-stop is quite high. Oh, yeah. I would assume 16, 22, somewhere in there probably.
I try not to go 22 because that shows all my dust spots.
Christian actually asked about that. He said that. And so that's very interesting. And why we're at it, that Christian asked a question about ND filters to slow things down if it's too bright out. Is that something you've done?
Yes, you can do an ND filter. I haven't had a need for it too much because of the speeds that I'm shooting. I usually don't go below 1/100, and I can usually get this. And that was Tommy right there too in that photo.
Oh, that's what he looks like. All right, that's what kind of picture I'm going to get when I do his next beer run.
We're picturing the heck out of Tommy in this show. I thought it was about me.
Can you back up a little? Back up. You're in my shot.
So, Toby, you were asking now. So, I know most people are not going to get to that point of doing the air-to-air, but there are people that are on this chat right now that I know that they want to or get to that point. But Toby, you were asking about the refueling. Why don't we segue into that? Why don't you ask about that?
Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit more. We had those shots. I think they are in this gallery showing
right
you.
There.
You just missed it.
You just passed it right there.
Oh, right there. Yep. Thank you. Yes. So tell me a little bit more about this. Looks amazing, and obviously, I think this means you were working probably with the Air Force some. So, how did this all come about?
I can't tell you. It's all classified.
Okay, I understand. Can you
kidding.
whisper it? No one watches. No one's watching.
No, see, okay, so part of gaining relationships in the industry for the air show industry, this is just the air show industry. The air show partners with certain air bases in the vicinity. When I go down to LA County, which is in Lancaster, they partner with Edwards. Up here in Sacramento, they partner with Travis, which is just towards San Francisco from us, and Beale, which is just north of Sacramento. Mm-hmm. So these are out of Travis. These are the KC-10 refuelers. And because of my connections with the California Capitol Air Show, we had an opportunity to go on a sortie, a media ride, or a sortie is what they call it, with the Air Force. And I've been able to go down to the Travis and get on board some of their aircraft. And this was a mission where it was 2 KC-10s. So I'm actually in a KC-10, which is photographed right there. But KC-10s have the ability to what they call swap spit, which is refuel one another. So this is a training mission, and we are refueling each other. So this is me in the boom area, the boom room. The boom is that big long pole that goes down and connects to the top of another aircraft. And they'll supply fuel to any and every aircraft that needs air refueling, essentially. So I'm in the boom room taking this photo with the guy who runs that boom, who runs that pole down and refuels the airplane. And now if you advance is somewhere in this this gallery that you're in, you'll see it from the other end, where in fact it's right there. Yeah, exactly. I'm now in the cockpit looking up to the other KC-10 where we're receiving the fuel. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice little trip that you get to go on once in a while, given the right permission. And you get these photos on these missions. And it's quite cool. I wish I could do more of it, but trying to get involved with these sorties is pretty big permission.
Yeah, very, very cool and really interesting. Let's stay on this topic for a second of kind of the air to air. We've been talking about it, but you said that your favorite plane to shoot from. We were talking about this while you were getting another beer. You used the router.
That was my excuse. I was getting low and I needed more beer, and I just said I'm just going to cut this.
Yeah, totally. Remind me the name of the plane as I start to pull it up. But David made the comment that it's a low wing plane, which as a photographer, that feels like it'd be a little bit more in your way. So can you talk a little bit about that as I find that picture again?
Sure. Now, if you go back to that, there are some high wing. In fact, a friend of mine who's a skydiver supplies his own airplane, which is a high wing Cessna 206, and that's a low wing Bonanza A36. Mm-hmm. And the beauty of that is it's got what's called club seating. And the club seating means the 2 seats behind the pilot and the co-pilot face backwards. And those 2 doors open up to get your passengers in the aircraft. So you can actually seat 4 people in those 2 open doors. But when I go flying to shoot another aircraft, we take those doors off, strap myself into that seat, and this is the angle, which is actually a pretty decent angle to shoot air-to-air aircraft from. And that, because of the speed of the airplane, can actually keep up with a lot of different aircraft type. Mm-hmm. In fact, I don't claim to be the best photographer in aviation. I don't claim to be the only photographer. There's so many other aviation photographers out there that are just amazing. And of course, all of us as photographers have people that we look up to, our mentors, have done it a lot longer than we have. We try to learn from. There's a gentleman by the name of Glenn Watson that owns an aircraft just like that, and he's just killing it because he gets to fly with all the jet teams. He gets to fly in that type of aircraft and shoot the Blue Angels or the Thunderbirds or the Snowbirds or the solo pilots, the F-22s, the A-10s, the F-35s. These are all our fifth generation, the F-35, F-22 are fifth generation, the newest, greatest military aircraft in our fleet. And he has that opportunity to go fly with the military, which is a very big honor. And he's killing it with his photography.
Very cool. Let's, I think a question that's related. So we've seen you in this airplane. You've been talking a little bit about the photography from the airplane. Leslie has a question. Can you share a little bit about techniques, airplane versus helicopter? And I've got this other shot of you in a helicopter here.
And Leslie, I don't think you caught this. I think you were off air there for a second. But Leslie is a great photographer, Hasselblad photographer. I've only seen her work, via social media, but I know she does a lot of aerial photography, landscape aerial photography, and so maybe that plays into that a little bit too.
Well, definitely. Helicopters is not something you do a lot of air-to-air with unless it's something just really slow. But again, that's probably not your best shooting platform. When you're shooting air-to-air with another slow aircraft, you try to get into something that matches the airspeed. In fact, like I've been in an N3N, which is an old bi-wing military aircraft, and shooting other old warbirds out of. So you kind of want to match your photo ship to the speed of the aircraft that you're shooting. The helicopters I'm in, usually I'm shooting air to ground. And typically we do a route around the air show, in the middle of the air show, just so we can get aerial shots down on to the ramp area and the crowd area and all the exhibits and the tents and everything that are around. So the air show organizers kind of have an idea of where people are congregating and how things look from the air. It's essentially the same as doing drone footage, but drone footage in an air show is not highly encouraged at the moment, we'll just say. We're trying to get to that point to where we don't need to spend $100 doing a couple laps in a helicopter versus I can just get a drone up and do the same thing. But there's just a lot of controversy with drones around airplanes right now that we haven't pushed through that issue quite yet. But so the helicopters are a lot slower, but they can keep up, but I don't recommend using them as a photo ship platform unless it's something that you only have, if that's the only option you have, and you're trying to get a shot.
Gotcha. But do you do any landscape photography from the air much, or?
I do. I've had some clients ask me to do air to ground stuff. I've actually had IKEA in West Sacramento ask me to go take a shot. In fact, you can see there the air to ground aerial photography. I get clients that ask me to go up and shoot the solar panels on their roofs, or the one on the far right over there is the Aerospace Museum in McClellan, which is here in Sacramento, and just try to get some air to ground stuff. So I have a number of different things that I do with the aviation photography that aren't even completely aviation related. But
so do you prefer a helicopter then, say, in those situations? And obviously you can hover. So, and is there a special technique because of vibration or anything that you do on that, say for landscape or buildings versus an air-to-air situation? So totally different situation.
Air-to-air situations, in both situations, you want to have an image stabilizer lens. So, but when you're doing air-to-air stuff, when the airplane is right next to you, the image stabilization isn't that huge of an issue, but it gives you a larger use rate, I guess, of the different shots. I don't shoot burst. I don't ever shoot burst. I select the images that I want to press the shutter on. I see so many people just when they're at the air show and they got 20 frames a second, they go, and then that just means you've got 10,000 photos, literally 10,000 photos you got to go through and figure out which one's best. I can do it in a matter of 5 or 6 and then make sure that I've got the right scenario shot, because you've got the right settings, you know what you're doing, you get up there, you just know what's going to work, what's not going to work. And that is through experience.
That comes with time. Yeah,
it does come with time, but I'm here to tell you guys a little bit about how to get that done a little quicker.
Mm-hmm. Sure. No, that's good. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Allie, you had a question beforehand. I know you were talking about the G-forces, but I'm just curious about that. Or, Mark, have you ever shot during an aerobatic show? Now that comes to play, like you're actually inside a plane, not hopefully throwing up, pulling G's, trying to shoot. What's that like? Because that's Allie. That was so. What you were? Go ahead, Allie. I'm sorry. What was your exact question on that? That you were.
Yeah, well, I've never really done air to air aside from, out the window on our commuting to travel. But I have done photographing the kids, skiing on the boat. And here I am holding this long lens. The boat is moving and bouncing and trying to keep them in the frame. And they're moving too. So I know that it's a big challenge. And so on top of that, you have G-forces sometimes. You have just crazy anticipating that you need to do to get these great shots. So kind of talk us through that whole process of how you do it.
My answer may not be as thrilling as you would hope. But yes, when you're flying level, you're only at 1 G, which is like you're standing on the ground. When you are doing aerobatic maneuvers, when you're going up with another group of airplanes, you do push a little bit of G's, but you're not usually pushing more than a couple of G's. Technically, I can only be in the airplane when they're practicing for that. So we'll do rolls or we'll do loops or something of the sort. And in order to get the loop going, you have a little bit of inertia and some G-forces. You can literally pour water upside down if you've done your loop properly. That goes back into the Bob Hoover days. He's an amazing, amazing top dog pilot from back when he used to do aerobatics in like a commander, and he would do rolls, and he would be pouring his in the roll converted. He'll actually be pouring his iced tea or something of the sort when he's drinking
as he flies by.
Well, you got to have the roll as a steady.
Oh, I see.
And it actually keeps 1 G because if you're upside down, you're actually on a centrifugal force of it. So
that's wild. That's wild.
But Tommy, when we go flying, that guy over there, when we go flying practice rounds with the guys, we'll do some maneuvers called follow and trail or something of the sort. And that's kind of this up and down movement, and you're doing this back and forth. And when you break to land, you're going straight, and then all of a sudden it's a 2G turn to turn around and brake for landing. And fortunately, I don't get sick, but sometimes I get a little. Okay, I gotta put the camera down and take a breath, and okay, I can shoot again. But there aren't a lot of G's that are being pulled when you're shooting like that. If you get a chance, the dream is to go in the back end of a Thunderbird or a Blue Angel or any of the military jets. That's the dream for all of us aviation photographers, is to get in the back seat of that. And when you're in the back seat, you just do GoPros. Do not try to take a picture. They will try to they do. If you allow them, they will do 9+ G turns. That is 9 times your body weight.
Yeah.
So if you're at 200 pounds, that's 1,800 pounds in the seat that you're sitting in. And it's like,
jeez, that's awesome.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Don't try to lift your camera and take a picture while you're doing that.
I have to interject this real quick because I don't think you know this, Mark. Toby, you may not even know this, but I have my I have my private pilot's license, have my glider license. I actually got my glider first, and but I haven't flown. Quite 4 kids got expensive. You know the drill. But I asked Allie to marry me. I took her up, and I was flying in a glider, and I asked her to marry me while we were flying. But Allie, do you remember that time when I pulled the loop, and instead of actually going around, we actually didn't have enough inertia? And we just dropped and then nose down. And Allie blacked out for a second. So,
and you still married him.
That's why you don't want me. Yeah. Anyway, I don't fly much anymore. And that's my little aviation story. Anyway, there's some other questions. We want to try and get to those, Tobe. What do you think?
Yeah, well, definitely. I want to hit another one. You mentioned you don't shoot in continuous, but autofocus modes. Are you a single shot, continuous autofocus? What do you do there?
That's on the Canon. It's called AI Servo, and the AI Servo gives you that instantaneous autofocus when things are moving in the frame. So you don't go to the beep beep and then take the picture, because whatever you just focused on is out of focus by the time you actually shut her down. So it's called AI Servo. I forget what it's called on the Nikon.
AFC.
And then what does Sony use right now? They're using
AFC as well, I think. Yeah.
So that's anything movement wise. I'm sure even your sports photographers are putting in that same setting when there's a ball that's coming towards them or something of the sort, or a runner or an athlete or something. You definitely have to have it in that mode.
Yeah. If you don't mind, let's stay on the gear for a moment. You mentioned 5D Mark IV. What are some of your favorite lenses?
Well, oddly enough, here's the thing that if you really, truly want to get into the air show industry, let me just say, first of all, don't get in it for money. There's not much there. But if you enjoy going to air shows, you will find you will end up spending more time not shooting airplanes. And that means you are shooting the crowd, you are shooting the chalets, you are shooting the vendors, you are shooting the static aircraft. You're shooting everything that your air show organizer wants to see to market the show for the next year. So I am actually more of an event photographer, but I also get contracts for that. So because I have aviation background, I understand how to get a good aviation image, but I also have to be a really good event photographer. And that's a whole different subject we can go down. But being that said, my 24 to 105 is my 90% lens.
Wow. Even for the aircraft?
Well, on the ground.
Or just so you're walking around, okay, so you're photographing it for the event, you're photographing people, you're photographing static displays, you're photographing all that. So you're going to use that lens a lot. It's like an overall lens. But I'm assuming then when you're shooting the aircraft, even before the crowds get there, that's going to be kind of your go-to lens lot?
Well, the key to aviation photography at air shows for the directors that hire you to come out and do the shows, the key is to get there a day or two early, which they technically want you there a day or two early. And there's always a rehearsal day. And it's not a practice day because we don't practice anything. We rehearse everything that we're going to do the following day. That means all the pilots do their full routine or part of the routine, and they just practice getting used to the runway, the what's called density altitude, depending upon where they're flying. Just kind of getting their markers on the ground so that then when they're doing turns and loops and everything, they can adjust for their position in the air to put on the great show. So a lot of my air shots from the ground as a spectator, but inside the aerobatic box, is done on the rehearsal day or the day before when they arrive. You get some amazing photos on arrival day, like the Thunderbirds, Blue Angels, those type of jet teams will do maneuvers on arrival day that they will not do during the show.
Oh, wow.
So those shots are extremely unique to capture because nobody else gets them. And that's again, that's my key, is getting the exclusive images that most people are not getting. And that's the key to the access. You have to have access to get those shots. Even air to air, obviously, you need to become friends with the pilots, or and that's basically, I think every pilot that I've flown with, I was friends with prior to being thrown in by an airshow director of some sort. So the airshow directors don't throw you in the back of these airplanes. It's the relationships you make with these pilots that get you in these airplanes. And if you reciprocate with images for them, they will take you any day of the week.
Wow.
Very cool.
So with your gear, because Toby, I just want to, you were talking the gear.
Getting off the subject.
No, that's okay. I want to just, I do want to bring it back around a little bit though, because you obviously are getting a contract. You've got to capture all this stuff. But for the average person that's listening today, they're like, hey, I'm going to go photograph an air show. Never done it. What gear should I bring? And if you're just joining us or you didn't catch us at the top of the show, it's important to understand, like the California Capital Air Show, but a lot of air shows are now taking suit that they are, you do pay for it, but you can become part of the photographer group that gets a special access. You get to get there for the rehearsal day, no crowds. You get to do nighttime, pre-opening shooting and all that. You're getting to do all that. So you get a few days to photograph. You can try different lenses. You can try different things.
Correct.
But how about long lenses? I know some of these guys go out, and I've seen them, then they got an 800 millimeter lens. And for me, I found that too long. I find when you have access like that,
correct,
a 70 to 200 or 100 to 400 is plenty, because you're that close, and these guys are flying that close. You're not, too long, and you're too close.
Yeah. On that, David, Mark, thinking you probably have a couple of bodies with a wide angle and a longer lens. Is that how you do it?
I actually do walk around with two cameras. I have my 5D Mark IV that I use for my primary shooting, and I also have my 5D Mark II that, honestly, I actually spend more time using that as a lens holder. I don't shoot a whole lot out of the Mark II, and there are times where I want the advanced technology of the Mark IV that the Mark II doesn't, and I will swap lenses out in the field while I'm doing this. But yes, my go-to lens, if it's not the 24 to 105, I have the reciprocal of the long lens, which is the 100 to 400. And I use the 100 to 400 for most everything. I actually have the Mark II, the 100 to 400. There are better, bigger, depends on how much money you got. There is a 200 to 400 that has the 1.4 teleconverter built in, which when it came out, it was $12,000. It depends on how much you want to incorporate this habit of yours of aviation photography. I have some friends that actually have that, and I just tell them to keep going. You're too close. You gotta get farther away with that lens. But every while I will put on my 1.4 extender. So it gives me 560 millimeters, and it's not a full frame. I have friends that use the crop sensor, which gives you even more length. But I like the quality of the full frame better because I can actually crop down the image that I want, better quality than what I've been getting out of the crop sensors. But even the crop sensors, like the new 70s or the 6Ds, have some great quality for the crop sensors that they have. But yeah, the 100 to 400 with a 1.4 gives me 560 millimeters of focal length. And that actually works great for me when there's a single propeller airplane out there. Because that's tiny, it's a little dot in the sky, and I have to slow down my shutter speed anyways. When I'm on the ground, I'm actually shooting about 1/250 to 1/320 so that I get that propeller motion. Because when you're on the ground and you're trying to shoot something that's whizzing by, you've got this movement that you have to continually do as you're coming by. And that's a lot of just experience of trying to make sure that you can focus right on that airplane as it comes by and get a decent shot when you're shooting at such a slow shutter speed. But when the jets come out, I got to take that 1.4 off. And then even if it's a single jet, like an F-22 or something, I need that f-stop back. So anytime you put that 1.4 on, you are doubling your f-stop essentially. So if I'm shooting an F4 on my 100 to 400, I'm now shooting at F9. It's a 4.556. So I got to go to 9, which is a pretty narrow aperture for shooting. And I need to speed up my shutter speed for that. I can't. For the jets. So here's a key that I learned from my mentor is when you're shooting propeller planes, you put it in aperture priority so that you can, other way around. Shutter speed priority so that you can control the shutter speed as a propeller plane is coming by. And when jets come by, you put it in aperture so that you're at wide open aperture mode all the time. And depending upon the lighting, your shutter speed will shift one way or the other. And sometimes it's still slow. If you're shooting
do you do auto ISO at all to try and get that ISO?
No.
Okay. Just curious for certain people, yeah.
For some people, I prefer the clarity over grain. Yep. I know that when you talk to Mike, and it's exactly the same when I do event photography, I put it on auto ISO because it is more important to have focus than the lack of grain or noise. So when I'm doing event photography, I put it on auto ISO. But when I'm doing jet or airplane photography, I keep it at 100 unless it's a night show. Sometimes we have evening light shows. There's an image in there somewhere too of a biplane shooting pyrotechnics out of it, and it's at night. It's pitch black in the background. I don't know if you can find that. Yeah, that's the one. That one was difficult to get because you have to have a fast enough shutter speed to have it clear, but it's got to be so wide open to even have enough light to bring that in. And I think that was shot at most ISO 400.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow. Well, that's, I've loved this conversation. We've been sharing your fantastic work, but what I think is funny is we've kind of hidden away this other section of your gallery, and I want to start talking about it. Your night shots, which just amaze me because both the technical challenge and also just the beauty of them. So I'm going to go ahead and hit slideshow on that. And maybe you can talk a little bit more about some of those challenges of shooting at night and how that's been working for you.
Well, I will tell you that my mentor photographer friend, who was the California Capitol Air Show photographer before I came along, I admired his work. He has probably 15, 20 years plus more experience than I do. But I started off by asking him some questions when I was a young photographer. And he was cordial enough to respond with some answers, but didn't divulge all the information, of course. But of course, when you're young and you're like, oh, wow, what camera do you use? What settings do you use? And it's like, well, it's a lot more than that now that I'm an experienced photographer. You guys are the same. And I'm sure a lot of your viewers right now are experienced photographers. And they understand that it's not all about the gear, but the gear does help you obtain the shots that you want to get. These night shots were taught to me by that mentor of mine. And it's a very simple process that has been around for years. And I'm sure you guys have even tried it in the past, but it literally is only painting with light. It's a long exposure. None of these are composites. None of my photography is composites on these galleries that you're showing. I don't use filters or any other post-processing pieces where now you can replace the background and you can put a new sky and you can put a whole new beach scene and everything. No, these are straight from the camera with mild adjustments in Lightroom. So I actually do all my post-processing in Lightroom. I do not take them into Photoshop. I will, once in a while, if I need to do something specific, I'll take it in the Photoshop. But every one of these, you try to get the settings just right to get it to come out of the camera as is with as little post-processing as possible. So these are all single shots of these aircraft. And the exposure time is 2 to 3 minutes, depending on your lighting. So you have to have a tripod. You have to have a remote switch that you can open the shutter for longer than the 30 seconds in the bulb mode. These are all shot manually. These are all low light images that you're seeing right now, but the night shots of the aircraft with the lighting behind them is just a technique like that one. Those are Harriers in LA County. And the lighting that you come from behind is all just painting with light.
Very cool.
So you're using a flashlight or somebody using a flashlight or what type of light? I mean, so I just want to make sure our clients understand this. You're setting up, doing the shot, and then somebody or yourself is actually taking a light and painting the aircraft with that light. And what type of light are you using?
When I was learning in conjunction with Tyson Renninger is my longtime mentor for aviation photography. He's, again, I never claimed that I am the best in this business by any means. There are so many others out there that great shots. But Tyson taught me this technique because he came out to California Capitol, and I pretty much pinned him up against the wall and says, "You're going to show me how you do this." And he did. He takes me out. And you can do this singly. A lot of these shots that I've done by myself. I am using a pretty high candle lit flashlight that you can flood the area with, but I also have just one strobe, one literally on camera flash that I take and I create these images from. I do not put out a bunch of remote strobes out on the ramp to get these images. It is sneaker lighting, as I call it. You use your sneakers to get around the airplane and put the light where you want it, and then you come back and close the shutter and hope that everything went well.
Yeah, so Toby's real good at that. I can recommend it.
Yeah, he's really good at that.
I love that term.
So you're popping the flash out. You're either using a flashlight or you're holding the flash, walking around, popping it off during the exposure in different areas to light the aircraft.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, that's cool. And then it's all guesswork. So that's really cool.
It is. It's all guesswork from there. You gotta make sure that you're not open too long. Depends on the lighting. I mean, there's usually a golden hour to a blue hour. Like this one right here,
blue hour,
3 is a blue hour, where you get some blueness, and those are one of the ones I like. Is when I get blue in the back rather than black. And that is a very small window, so you better get it right in the 20 minutes. Literally, there's 20 minutes of daylight to get those shots off correctly. And see, this is a blue light image, a Fifi, a B-29. Trying to make sure I get blue in the background. I don't like them black. And see, as the night goes on, you can see how it gets darker and darker in the background.
Yeah.
And there's another darker one, but I still get blue. And that's really what I like. I like the blue. And now you can see it's almost black. So I just kept moving around, trying to get different images or different angles, trying to figure out how they're going to come out. And hopefully they turn out pretty well.
Very cool. Very cool.
Toby, is it possible to show? There was a couple shots I wanted to make sure that we showed our guest, and I don't know where they are, Mark. But you had like the F-22, I think, breaking the sound barrier, or there was something like that, or something was going through.
It's called vapor. And it's not actually
I was just
breaking the sound barrier, but it is. Okay. You see like clouds or condensation that are on the wings or coming off the wings as he's flying by. Jets are not allowed to break the sound barrier at air shows or anywhere except certain areas of the country, like Edwards. Edwards Air Force Base down in the Antelope Valley. They break the sound barrier, like I think every morning at 9:30 or something like that. They just get 15 seconds. They go up like 20,000 feet or something, and they just do a sonic boom just to wake everybody up. If they're not up by 9:30, you're gonna be up. But see, at air shows, you're not allowed to break the sound barrier.
There it is. Yeah, look at that shot.
This is in an area. This was actually down at Hangar 24, which is Redlands, California, Southern California, on a very humid day. So if you've got a lot of humidity in the air, and when jets will make a sharp turn or go close to the speed of sound, they will do vapor like this. And you don't see a lot of that here in Sacramento because we're so freaking dry around here that we barely ever get anything like that. But you have to get closer to the coastlines to get images like that. Or even down in Texas, you get a lot of those because it's so humid. Here on the West Coast, we don't have the luxury of getting that much humidity around us to get these shots on a regular basis. But I have lots of aviation friends that get these almost daily. Every time they go to an air show, they get these cones. It looks like a cone around it when it's shooting down straight down on a low deck. Like if you go to San Francisco Fleet Week or something, some of these guys will get down on the deck literally and shoot through at just a few miles an hour, a few knots below breaking the speed barrier, and that's where you get these cones that just come right out of the airplane. It's all condensation, and that's how you get those shots.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, we didn't even. I don't feel like I've shared this gallery much. So as we're talking a little bit more, I'm going to run this gallery too because it's full of just fantastic shots. Yeah.
I've got so much content; it's ridiculous. Over the 10 years, I've actually been doing more of this.
Yeah.
So while we're looking at this, why don't we try and get some more of these questions that have come our way? If that's okay with you, Allie and Toby, is that cool?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We don't need to go to it, but I want to ask because Becky Miller was asking about the older red and white plane. Was that a Cessna 190? Her dad had one, and he flew it everywhere with them.
There was a Cessna 190 or 195 in that gallery, and yes, that was
neat.
Some friends of ours down in Sacramento that had that. Cool. Yeah, that was a 195, I believe. It could have been a 190, but I think it's a 195.
Awesome. Kevin walked
right there.
Oh yeah. That's cool. Wait, talk about that. And it's not a composite. I don't know if you could make that. Yeah, I saw that. That's crazy.
That's one of those unique photos that nobody gets unless you know these people. So
wait, plane's good.
Yes. So Melissa in the I think that's that's an Edge 540, an aerobatic plane. Melissa was an aerobatic pilot that did the circuit with the Airshow.
Oh, I know.
And so she got involved with a motorcycle team. In fact, I was there when she met these people. The motorcycle team that actually they want to jump over airplanes.
They're all sitting around thinking, "What can we do?"
Exactly. No, this is great. So I was there. There's a motorcycle jump team. You've seen these high flyers. You've seen motorcycle crosses that they go and they just do flips and stuff in the air. And then somebody came up with this harebrained idea. It's like, well, let's do a jump over a moving airplane. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then somebody on a tightrope high wire decided, well, I'll just stand above you while you guys do this.
Wow.
So this is a trifecta where Melissa says, okay, I need you to come out and cover this. I'm out on the runway with them. She's flying under the tightrope with the guy of the balloons while a motorcyclist is doing a flip off of the ramps on either side of the runway. And it's kind of a crazy combo. But
that's a bunch of nutsos right there. That's what I say.
Yeah.
Hey, it was hella fun to shoot.
I bet. I bet
it was.
It's an awesome shot.
And there is danger involved, and there is danger involved for these pilots. There's, they know what they're risking. I know that is Melissa one of the ones. I think. I don't know. I remember there was a couple. And anyway, I know you've lost friends. I knew the owner of Warlock. I mean, there's people that they're doing some of this stuff, and they're pushing the boundaries on this stuff.
It is a dangerous sport, and I have lost some friends to aviation accidents, and some I've actually even witnessed, which is not fun at an air show. So
most recently on a snowbird flyover, I know, and I think you knew the pilot from that one. Or I don't want to bring it, but it is important to understand that being around this field, there is an element of thrill, but there's also an absolute element of danger. As safe as you could make it, you're still dealing with that element.
Captain Jen Casey from the Snowbirds, absolute beloved. She was the PA. The public affairs officer. And it was just a fluke accident that she just survived. It was a few weeks ago. Even the 4-year anniversary just a couple of days ago of Jeff Cuss, who was the number 6 pilot of the Blue Angels, lost his life. It happens. It is rare, but you hear about any plane accident. So when these things happen, we mourn, we grieve, we're saddened to lose such great people in the industry, because these people in the industry work very hard to make a living doing what they're doing, and they are great people. And I can't imagine. Literally, they're just. I love each and every one of them. When you get the chance to meet them in person, talk with them, they're so down-to-earth people. And that's why, it's the relationships that you build that give you this access, give you the back seats of airplanes, and the love that you have for these performers at air shows, the pilots that fly even if they're not in air shows. They become very close friends.
Very much. Okay. Yeah.
So sorry to bring it down, but
but I think it's important to understand, and I know that you've been around it. There's some risk involved, but it's also very thrilling. It's incredible to photograph and be a part of, and the community. The little bit that I was, at the air show a couple times, that everybody was so wonderful, and
I got this good question. I'm really curious. I'm going to make it. Christian just asked favorite airplane. I want to make it 2-part though. Favorite airplane you photographed. Favorite airplane you've ridden in.
Wow, great question. Maybe one of the favorites that I've ridden in, and I haven't been in the full size one yet. I have had some offers, but hasn't transpired yet. I have a friend of mine that has, when you're an air show transient, I will say, you ask all your friends for rides to different air shows that you don't want to drive to, because driving is too far, or they're like, if it's over 2 hours, I'm like, I don't want to be in a car when you're used to being in an airplane that just gets you there much faster. So I have a lot of friends that have faster airplanes than anywhere I can drive. One of my favorites that I've actually flown in fact, I've shot from, is a Thunder Mustang, which is a 2/3 scale Mustang. So I haven't been in the full size one yet. I have lots of friends that have them, and I've been offered to go in them, but I can't connect. I even had an opportunity to fly with the Patriots, and I was going to do a full photo shoot for them. We were doing something with Cinejet. Cinejet is a company out of LA who does a lot of the aerial photography for movies. And they partnered up with the Patriots, which is down in Byron, not far from Sacramento here, to put shot over cameras on the noses of these Patriot jets. They got the contract. In fact, you'll see it. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen this month, but it'll happen in December. They got the contract to shoot the new Top Gun.
Oh.
So Randy Howell, who owns the Patriot, and Kevin De La Rosa is a junior, was down there. He's the one that does all the flying for the Cinejet for the movie stuff. I was going to go with the two of them. They were going to get two of the Patriots with the shot over camera on the nose, and we were going to do a Top Gun inverted shot with it, and I was going to be in one of the other L-39 jets. Well, we had some starting problems with the jets that day, and when it happens, it happens. It's just part of the business that if you can't get the jet started, or there's just too many things that just weren't quite right, and you didn't want to force it. So we just decided to call off the shoot, and we haven't rescheduled that one yet.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Right.
Christian's been in an L-39. He just wrote.
Well, honestly, I've been in a lot of different jets, but I actually haven't been in the L-39 yet. Or I've got friends that have A4 and T-33s and all kinds of different. I've had a lot of offers. I just haven't connected.
What's your favorite plane your favorite plane? If you could choose a plane any plane that's just your favorite plane,
Wow.
Current World War II. I know for me, I've got different time frames. I love, World War II, current aviation, but if you could choose one.
It's hard to beat a P-51. That would be a number one, or in the top 5 at least. One of the rare opportunities, again, with the connections I have with this place, they put me in the back, or no, not the back seat, the front nose of, at the time, was the only airworthy B-29 that was ever.
Oh, cool.
I think there was a shot of that, right?
Yeah.
2 shots of those intermingled in there. So being in the bombardier seat, which is the nose, it's the glass nose of these bombers. That was probably one of my top flights that I can say that I've been on.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
It's awesome as long as the Luftwaffe aren't coming at you, right? So
yeah. But I had a P-51 escort too, so I was on.
You were protected.
I was protected.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
very cool.
I think we're going to be wrapping it up here.
All right.
I do want to just say one more time. First of all, do we know what's happening with the California Capital Air Show this year? Have they made a decision yet based on COVID? Is it going to happen? Or is it still on the plate to possibly happen?
It is still on the plate. We haven't made any decisions on that yet. Everything is worthy of changing. I know in Texas they are actually, I think they are moving forward with an air show in Texas July 4th. So there's a lot.
Of course they are in Texas.
Well, yeah, it's a completely different state, but we're going to have to see what transpires from all the protesting that are social, not distancing, to see if we're going to have a big wave. But there's no decision as of yet. They haven't called it no. They haven't called it yes. It has a lot to do with the county and the city that want to promote it. But
what are the dates?
It's in early October. So October 3rd and 4th is the California Capital Air Show. We're planning on it as of date until somebody tells us no.
Okay, and the reason I wanted to plug that is, one, it's a great organization, you know, and I really want to encourage you that are listening, if you are in the area. Oh, look at that guy, Mr. Aviation.
Hey, nice guest star.
Future pilot. You know, oh, look at that little one. All right. Man, they got their good looks from their mom, I guess, huh?
Absolutely. I say that every day, too. He wants to be a pilot or an engineer, at least.
Awesome.
All right.
Great jacket, too.
Mm-hmm. Great jacket.
Quite the bomber jacket. Yeah. Sorry for the photo bomb, but
no, that's awesome. So with the air show, if it goes on, you will be there. You will be part of the you know, out shooting, obviously, but you'll also be around and maybe helping with people that are there as part of the photographer if they do buy into that photography package situation. And I know it's limited in people. I don't know. Is Bruce still in charge? I don't know, but I want to make sure that I get a chance to get it to my people first before it sells out.
Bruce is still in charge. I don't deal with that anymore. I let Bruce handle all that. Bruce has been fantastic. He runs that. It's called herding cats, and I don't do that. I've got too much on my plate to have to deal with you David's cats that are all running around trying to get the best shot. He has to corral all you photographers and make sure you don't run out and spinning props. But I've got a huge shot list that I need to cover when I'm at the air shows, and I don't have time to deal with some of those. But I stop and say hello and answer any questions. But I've got too much work.
Yeah, and but that is something they can be involved in. It's something they can look into for the air shows that they're in. That is the way to get your foot in the door, as you did, to get going in this. Absolutely get into that and start meeting people, start meeting the pilots. Correct. You know, cut your teeth, so to speak. There was one last thing. We had a request from Jamie Morgan. She's in there right now. And I just wanted to, she asked, you know, with Photo Enthusiast Network, we do tutorials and videos and all this great stuff that is as a Penn member. I am going to figure out a way. I don't know how we're going to do this, Jamie, but you asked about a video of the nighttime painting. I just want to say that I want to go out with you and photograph and do some night painting with you of some static displays aircraft. I will buy you beer.
That have actually been out there with us, including a great group of guys called the Airedales. And the Airedales are a group of guys that come out from back east. Some of them are scattered throughout the country, but they come out and they're the marshalers of all the aircraft, in or out for the air show. And they're here for an entire week. They help set up the ramp with all the aircraft that are displayed on the ramp, as well as they're bringing aircraft in and out when they are flying or coming back. So the Airedales, sometimes we actually have to enlist the Airedales to come pull an airplane out of the hangar for us at nighttime so that we can shoot it. And we're really disrupting their dinner time or their drinking time. And they are very courteous enough to come out and spare a couple of their guys. There's usually like 8 guys on the team, but they'll spare 2 guys to come pull an airplane out of the hangar, set it up on the taxiway where you've seen some of those shots, the P-51, the Cactus Air Force, oh yeah, the Corsair that's over there. We have it on.
Yeah, that F4 Corsair. Well, maybe you and I before the air show, maybe we can get one of your buddies up in Auburn and
it's going to cost you, Dave.
No, it's going to cost me beer, man. No, hey, Tommy.
Actually, he's actually
there'll be a night shot of my golf stream in Sacramento.
Yes, I got to go.
A golf stream.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to get to really know you, Tommy. Okay, so anyway, so cool. Listen, thank you very much. Is there anything else from you guys? I know I kind of took over a lot on this again, but I love aviation. I always love being around it. I appreciate what you do. Your work is amazing. And
photographers that are just more amazing than me. I can just say I have to learn from somebody, and trying to focus on what they're doing, figuratively and literally. Try to make yourself a better photographer by showing what the really professionals do all the time. So if you can mimic anything and then create your own style with it, that's all I can say. That's how you get in the door.
Nice.
Awesome.
And then it comes to do, because I don't know if you can see behind me, I've got some books that I create. I have books that I create for the California Capitol Air Show that summarize everything that happened during the air show.
Got it.
I also sell prints and all kinds of other things. So there's a whole lot of different aspects that I don't know. That's a whole other show too. I can point you in different directions to help you and that help the photographers.
Sure. And your website is on here. Everybody, you can absolutely contact Mark through his website. He does have some of his prints for sale. He's obviously very kind. I wouldn't text him or email him and expect an answer at 3 a.m. but no, absolutely
appreciate that.
Jamie's asking if you do intern programs. We will talk about some other things off the air, and we'll get that out to Penn members. So if you're a Penn member, if you're not, you want to become one. But we'll talk about some possibilities, because there's a lot of interest in this stuff, and you can at least help point maybe me in the right direction as well to some people as well.
Key also that I want to point out is that there's actually a couple other Mark Loper photographers out there, and I'm friends with a bunch of them because I have to be, because we're all getting each other's emails. So what I had to do, because I'm a marketing guy, I had to brand myself. So that's the reason why you see Mark E Loper. It's all one word, lowercase. That is my branding, just like Sony. I had to make myself Mark E Loper, all one word. And if you Google Mark E Loper, you'll come up with anything that'll just point you to me, as long as it's one word. If you go Mark Loper Photography, who knows who you're going to get? It could be the wedding photographer in Arizona, or it could be the sports photographer in Virginia.
So we got to make sure it's
Marky
Mark.
Well, this is my funky bunch right here.
Awesome. Mark, thank you very much for being on with us tonight. Great show. We went a little long, but it was awesome. I will be talking to you.
For the dropout.
We'll be talking back good. Hey guys, everybody, next Thursday, June 18th, we will be coming to you with our the Thursday after next, June 18th, 6 p.m. Terrell Lloyd, he is the San Francisco 49ers photographer. Yeah, he's an amazing guy. He also has photographed the Super Bowl 7 times. He is going to be talking. I know we've had, Mike Tedesco is a sports photographer who's done the Seahawks and whatnot. But Terrell's got a great story. Terrell also, it's very timely. That's Terrell there on the left with that big lens. And Terrell, as you can see, is an African-American gentleman. He's a good friend of ours. And he, in the middle of everything we're going through right now, he photographed Colin Kaepernick through all of that. He might share some stories of that. We don't want to get into big debates about all this, but it's an interesting perspective. And we just really wanted to bring Terrell on. We were able to get him to commit during this time before the season. We don't know what's going to happen with the season, but he's going to get extremely busy probably come July. Gracious of him to do what he's doing. So
I want to see that too.
Yeah, we'll want to see you on again in a couple of weeks. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. And we will be getting more information out to you soon on Marky Loper Photography. And see what we can do. Continue to bring some aviation education your way through Photo Enthusiast Network.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Mark. And I love those little guest cameos we got at the end there.
Yeah,
thanks, guys.
They've been hankering. I was like, can I come in? All right.
It's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing and your fantastic images. It's fantastic.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care. And chat room, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you all in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.